So we'll say it's freezing down in Egypt, right? Hello, everybody. This is the Future of Chernobyl, a roundtable around the future of Chernobyl and the nuclear energy itself. We believe, as the organizers, which is Chernobyl Welcome together with the Clean Futures Fund, this is the best way how to actually commemorate the 35th anniversary of the Chernobyl accident, which is basically today, the 26th of April, 2021. For those of you who are seeing it live stream, so hello. For those of you who are watching it on YouTube later on, so just this is the time frame we are looking at right now. So it's the 35th anniversary today. Let me welcome our guests, our special and honored guests, and we'll start with the nuclear lady, or this is how she's called by the media, and it's Dr. Dana Drabova. She has served as the chairperson of the Czech State Office for Nuclear Safety since 1999. She was the governor for the Czech Republic in the IAEA Board of Governors, and that was twice. She was serving also as the vice chair. From 2006 to 2009, she was the chairperson of Western European Nuclear Regulators Association. She has been a member of International Nuclear Safety Group, and since 2012, she has chaired the IAEA's Commission on Safety Standards. I mean, the IAEA is making me troubles, but I mean, you already know probably who is familiar with Chernobyl. That's the International Agency for Atom Energetics, which is nearby in Vienna. And by the way, Dr. Dana Drabova, during her tenure, the commission, she was, among others, examining the safety standards in the light of the Fukushima Daiichi accident. Please welcome Dr. Dana Drabova. The next one.
Greetings from Prague to everybody.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you very much. The next one on our roundtable is Vladimir Slugan. Professor Vladimir Slugan is the chairman of Slovak Nuclear Society, and since 2007, he is also the vice chairman of the Slovak National Nuclear Fund. In the years 2009 to 2011, he acted as the president of European Nuclear Society. Currently, he teaches at the Nuclear and Physical Engineering at Slovak University of Technology here in Bratislava. The main field of his research and teaching activities is operation and safety of nuclear power plants, application of spectroscopic methods by investigation of materials used in the nuclear industry. Vladimir, please welcome to the roundtable. Third is our dear friend from the US. It's Lucas Hickson, who is an environmental contamination specialist that has studied the fate and transport of radioactive contamination at Chernobyl and over 100 sites around the world. Lucas is also the president and co-founder of the Clean Futures Fund, which is an American humanitarian organization that supports the workers of Chernobyl and their families. One of the CFF main activities in Chernobyl exclusion zone is the stray dog vaccination and adoption program. You might know it under the name of the Dogs of Chernobyl. Hi, Lucas. I know that you are coming to these roundtables, not from Chernobyl, not from Ukraine, but from Egypt. So hi.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. My name is Dominic Orphanus. I will be your host today. I will try to make sure this roundtable gives you, our dear spectators, the glimpse into the future of Chernobyl, at the same time to the future of the nuclear energy. So I happen to be a guide in Chernobyl for over 12 years, and now Chernobyl is my second home. With my colleagues at the Chernobyl Welcome, we organize adventure tours to Chernobyl zone with real heroes, eyewitnesses, liquidators, and Chernobyl body shops. Chernobyl Welcome helped to put Chernobyl on the travel map, and now is having the same mission with Baikonur in Kazakhstan, Fukushima in Japan, and North Korea. As a side note, we were inviting also the officials of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. However, they are too busy with the official visits. Today, there is also the president of Ukraine coming. So anyway, nevertheless, hope we'll have enough insight for you, our dear spectators. All right, this was a long intro. I will also tell you who is actually behind the screens that you cannot see. It's Martin, who is the admin, who will be showing you the pictures and who will be showing you the videos that were prepared, by the way, by Helga. And Helga, besides the content management that she did for this wonderful event, she is also the link between us and our social media. So feel free to ask anything on our Facebook under the event or on our Instagram, and we will make sure that Helga will deliver it here, and we can ask our guests about what is of any interest to you. And there is also Lula, who is basically checking if everything is all okay, and she's basically connecting the dots and behind the scenes, basically. All right, let's move to the round table and to the first question. And the kickoff question is actually something that I was inspired today by a radio interview that I did. And I was asked, how is this day different since it's the Chernobyl accident anniversary of any other day in your life or any other day during the year? So our lady, our nuclear lady Dana, so how is this day different for you?
Well, this day is even more busy with media interest. Even 35 years after the accident, the interest of media in the Czech Republic in the consequences of accident and in the status of Chernobyl nuclear power plant site is quite high. So I had at least 10 or 12 interviews and quite a lot of written questions to answer. This is the last meeting I have for today concerning Chernobyl, but I think it's very important, even after 35 years, to try to answer all questions and try to really calm down the emotions that still can be connected with the accident.
I see. Thank you very much, Dana. We really appreciate that you have found the time for this roundtable. All right, Vladimir, what about you and your day? How is it? Is it special in any way?
It's nothing special because life is running. But I agree with Dana, this day is really significant from the media interest to give some information or to correct some not right information about the Chernobyl. But I tried to be limited on the explanation of the technical data, and the moving to Chernobyl from the past to now is that much more is discussed about the social impact and about, let's say, feeling of the people than about the technical causes of the accident.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, last but not least, Lucas. So how is your day different since it's the anniversary?
Well, living in Slavutic and in Ukraine, it's a day of remembrance for us. It starts late last night. Typically, this anniversary is celebrated in a very routine, methodical manner. But of course, with the quarantine and corona lockdowns, it's been a little different this year. In Slavutic, the city that's home for the workers at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, starting at midnight, we have a remembrance event. And the priest from the local church comes, the workers from the power plant and their families come. We gather in the city center and we have a memorial service. Generally lasts about an hour and a half long, and is attended by thousands of people. Now, of course, this year with Corona, attendance was strictly limited, but it was streamed online. Also in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, workers have been working for the last 2 weeks to make preparations for the president's visit. And so it's been a very busy time for them. And I know that in Pripyat last night, they had an art show on display, also memorializing what happened in the accident. So here in Ukraine, it is still a day that is taken in remembrance and discussed widely, especially here in Slavutic, where so many of the workers live.
All right, thank you very much for giving us the first-hand insight into Slavutic and into what is happening around Chernobyl zone, as you are basically the closest most of the time, of course. All right, I think it's time for the first real question, and something that is probably on top of the mind of many people who are looking at Chernobyl accident from today's perspective. And I would like to ask our experts, and feel free to pick your word and to be the first one to answer. How has Chernobyl changed the safety of our nuclear energy in the past 35 years? So what has happened? What has improved? What has changed?
Can I start?
Yes, Vladimir.
Dramatically. The safety improvement after the accident was on the different levels. First of all, I would like to mention the analysis focused on the core damage frequency coefficient, which increased of about 2 orders. And it was done by different safety analysis, safety measures, new safety systems, evaluation, and a very deep analysis in focusing on the defense in the depth. No other industrial branch increased so dramatically in so short time the safety. But beside this technical, let's say hardware safety improvements, there was also improvement of the safety culture. This term was involved in the nuclear safety after the Chernobyl accident. International cooperation, VANO or INSA groups were created for the knowledge exchange. And the approach to the safety from the public was dramatically changed. The transparency in the nuclear operation was included. So I think that this 35 years in the increase of the nuclear safety was really significant. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much. Dana, what about you? What do you think? What have you seen?
I fully agree with Vladimir. The safety after the Chernobyl accident was increased dramatically, and even more it increased after the Fukushima accident, because this accident 10 years ago involved also a reassessment of, say, extreme natural events that were really thoroughly re-evaluated. But I would like to underline what was already mentioned by Vladimir, and this is one aspect in the puzzle of nuclear safety. That means the human reliability and also human culture when operating nuclear power plants. It is called safety culture, and this was really topic for last 35 years, and in my opinion, the attitude towards knowing not only how to operate nuclear power plant, but also why it is designed and operated according some rules. This was very important, and increasing the safety as much as technical improvements.
I see. Thank you very much. And actually, I have a follow-up question for Vladimir. From your book, I have learned that most of the actions that we're taking on increasing the safety are basically squeezing out the human factor from the safety of nuclear power plants. So is it true? And what we can expect maybe also in the future for a, let's say, fourth generation of the reactors?
Human factor is a very important issue. We assume that everything what touch human can get wrong. Therefore, the different automatic systems were included. And in case of the possible accident, the human influence is less and less. And in the real critical situation, the human is extracted from the system, and the automatic systems take over the process and brings the reactor to the safe mode. Nevertheless, I would like to mention also different approaches into the nuclear safety. So we are approaching to the inherent safety system without electricity, system where the hydrogen is not produced, systems where the gravity or the nature laws are giving the answer for the system. So the philosophy based on the defense in depth was implanted in the system in many nuclear issues, not only power plant operation, but also the supporting systems. So the change in the mind of the people operating nuclear facilities was real dramatical and is visible.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lucas, what do you think? Do we see some kind of, I would say, more mainstream acceptance of radiation, what it is, what it does? And are we better prepared for a possible next Chernobyl in terms of the radiation safety?
Well, I would first like to reiterate the point that the previous two presenters made about the human factor and how important that is. And we talk about eliminating the human influence on the operations, but I think it's also important on this day of remembrance to think about the human actions that actually limited these severe accidents, both at Chernobyl and at Fukushima Daiichi. The commitment of the staff that worked at their places. Inside of the Chernobyl reactor, in between units 3 and 4, we have a memorial for Vladimir Hodemchuk, who was the first person killed after during the explosion in 1986. And this memorial is not just for Hodemchuk, whose body was never recovered, but it's for all of the workers at the nuclear power plant, none of whom on that night abandoned their post. They all stayed, they all participated. And if you look at the events at Fukushima and Daiichi, while we did have a triple meltdown and severe core damage, significant core release into the environment, in many ways that accident as well was mitigated by the actions of the staff at the nuclear power plant. In terms of preparation for a potential release, I think that many improvements have been made over the last 35 years. The expansion of this concept of safety culture has, I think, been important. Unfortunately, we haven't eliminated the possibility of a significant core damage event or a significant core release. And unfortunately, I don't think that there is a way from an engineering perspective to do so. I think it really what it comes down to is a proper training and passing down of knowledge and experience from the current operators to the next generation. And at Chernobyl, I know that that's a big significant problem that we're going to be facing very soon. Most people don't think about the fact that most of the staff working at the nuclear power plant today were not working there in 1986. We've already jumped one generation, and we're getting ready to head into the second and third generations who are heading into their working careers. And the way in which we communicate that knowledge and experience from previous generations to future generations is an extremely important topic at nuclear power plants around the world, especially at Chernobyl. So from my side, I think preparation comes from our ability to accept odious facts. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a famous American philosopher, and he said, no picture can have any veracity that ignores the odious facts. The odious fact is we can't eliminate the potential of a significant core release. What we can do is better prepare the staff. What we can do is better prepare the local communities, the national governments, to be able to respond quickly, efficiently, and transparently. And I think we're working in that direction, but we still have a ways to go.
I see. And do you see it being applied after, especially after the accidents that have happened, that even the wide public, I would say, common sense is ready for some events like this, or has a common sense about the radiation and on the risks?
You know, I think there was a large period of time from the early 1950s to 1986, around the time of Chernobyl, where the general public was not interested in the concept of safety or preparedness in this. And after these significant disasters like Chernobyl, like Fukushima Daiichi, it's reinvigorated the public interest in these terms. From a regulatory perspective, from a scientific perspective, we're trying to eliminate uncertainty to come down to some scientific facts that we can begin to build the concepts of safety around. So it's a good question. What's the debate of safety? What is safe? What's an acceptable margin for safety? And, I think that there is a role for the public to have their say and input, but they need to be educated. So I'm very glad for these types of roundtables and discussions, especially with people like Dr. Dobrova and Professor Slugin, who have, dedicated their entire careers to this field, to be able to increase the public education about these concepts, so that way they can make more informed decisions.
Thank you very much. I have a follow-up question for Dana Dobrova regarding the safety. So based on your knowledge and as a part of the International Atomic Energy Agency, do you see, or which of the nuclear power plants around the world you consider that are not sufficiently safe, or maybe that you have some doubts about their safety and level of safety?
Hello, Dominic. After Chernobyl accident, nuclear industry worldwide become aware that accident anywhere is the accident for the whole world, for the whole nuclear industry, and that the accidents may lead to the end of the nuclear business, peaceful nuclear business. That means that those interconnections, this international cooperation under the umbrella of International Atomic Energy Agency, of World Association of Nuclear Operators, and quite a lot of other professional association leads to say peer reviews that are aimed at assuring a really comparable level of safety in each and every nuclear power plant operated in the world. So what is different are maybe the means how to achieve a high level of safety, but not the high level of safety itself.
Okay. So you don't see any compromises on safety anywhere around the globe?
No, because really the nuclear industry and the nuclear regulators as well are closely watching each other to keep the comparable high level of safety.
Thank you very much.
I would like to follow up to that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that when we're talking about the lessons learned, I think that that's probably a little bit easier than talking about the risk or the concern about a particular site. The lessons learned. When did we first learn of the lesson? When was it demonstrated? And when was the response actuated? If you look at a significant disaster like Chernobyl, well, we knew the risk of that type of event before it happened. Unfortunately, the knowledge did not prevent it from happening. After it happened, the things that we knew were confirmed and needed to be changed in the entire Soviet nuclear industry. And there was a period of time between the accident and when those safety improvements were applied. The same after Fukushima Daiichi. We knew the risk of loss of offsite power. We knew the risk of core meltdown if you had such a significant event as the earthquake and tsunami. But in the safety calculations, we tried to separate those. Okay, here's the risk from a point of an earthquake. Here's the risk from a point of tsunami. But when you link those two together, we see the effects. Mm-hmm. And I can only speak for the United States, whose operations I'm a little bit more familiar with. After Fukushima Daiichi, there was a task force from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, our regulatory agency, that was charted with developing some improvements for our reactors based on the lessons learned at Fukushima Daiichi. And this is a multi-year process from when the analysts start doing all of their work and research to when it's actually approved by the NRC. Then, of course, the industry itself has its say and make some different arguments or discussions about what improvements need to be made. And then there's the period of, okay, agreed what to do and how long is it implemented? In the United States, we still have reactors that have not fully implemented the upgrades based on the lessons learned from Fukushima Daiichi. Now, I don't want to get into a discussion of, am I concerned or anything about that, but I'm saying that there should be as much importance based on applying the lessons learned as learning the lessons, or maybe even before the accident happens, being a little bit more proactive about the type of events that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Vladimir, would you like to follow up or?
Yeah. I was waiting a little bit and I would like to continue, perhaps from another point of view. The question about the nuclear safety is not actually if the nuclear power plant are safe. They are safe enough. But the question if the enough of the safety is really enough is the substantial question. If somebody can tell you that the probability of the core damage was 3 order better, and now it can happen not each 1,000 year, but 100,000 year or 1 million year, for people it's not safe enough. And that's the crucial question, where is the level safe enough? Look to the Germany after Fukushima accident or after Chernobyl accident, but now decision in the Germany was we will operate our nuclear power plant up to projected lifetime, up to 2022, when the last nuclear power plant will be out of operation. It's 11 years after the Fukushima accident. So decision in Germany, although Germany is the last decade very anti-nuclear countries, that the German society believe that the nuclear power plants are safe enough, safe for the operation for the next residual years of the lifetime. And that's the crucial now in acceptance of the nuclear. Each society, each country should ask this question to the government, to the people, to the different organizations, if the society recognize it is the optimal option for us. And if the nuclear power plants are operate in the safety mode, and if this safety level is enough. And if the decision will be the level is from the understanding on the tolerating level, we can tolerate and accept the nuclear source is the crucial for decision about the future of the nuclear power plant's operation.
I see. Thank you very much.
Based on what Professor Slugan said there, I think some of the public concern comes, when the Atomic Energy Commission, the United States Regulatory Commission, first established their significant core damage event calculations, it was about 1 in 1,000 years. And as Professor Slugan mentioned, the improvements that we've made to the industry over the last 50 years of commercial operation have brought that number up to 1 in every 100,000 years, if not greater at some different reactor designs. But on the other hand, there's some cognitive dissonance, because in the last 40 years, we've had 5 significant core damage events with releases into the environment. And, that's not 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100,000. And for the public, they need to be able to understand where these numbers come from. And as Professor Slugan said, be able to set their own value for the acceptability of these types of events. But it really needs a lot more public education for them to be able to to make those types of decisions. And that's why I'm so grateful for people like Professor Slugan and Dr. Dobrova, who've committed so much of their time to working to educate the public on these matters.
Thank you very much. I will take the question of safety and link it with the question of the economy or the economy of scale, because I mean, all these incidents or all this knowledge and the safety that we are putting into the power plants is then increasing the cost of the nuclear energy, right? And we saw maybe even some projects being postponed, like for example, the Finnish Olkiluoto nuclear power plant, just because of imposing a lot of new safety rules that have been structured or that have been created after Fukushima. So do you see that at some point maybe how we will be increasing the safety, we can also bump into the ceiling in terms of the economical sense of having a nuclear power plant? Dana, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. And I think that the generation of nuclear power plants that are ready to be built is already touching this floor, because this is a classical economic law that you can achieve a very big improvement of anything, including safety, in the beginning, putting in a rather low amount of money. But then, step by step, you are getting to improvements that are more and more expensive, bringing less and less benefit in the terms of safety. And you step-by-step approach the moment when, for a very, very huge amount of money, you get this small amount of safety improvement.
Right. So as we see, for example, happening in the US, where the nuclear energy is not coping with the cost of the renewables, for example. So Lucas, how do you see this economy ceiling for the nuclear energy?
Well, I like to go back to the beginning, and I would say since the beginning, it hasn't been economically able to stand on its own feet. When we talk about the production of the first commercial reactors, this has all been based on federal loans and grants, and it continues to be to this day. If we talk about the insurance for operation of these plants in the United States, not only is there special regulations, the Price-Anderson Act, but they were not unable to obtain insurance on their own because existing insurance companies were not willing to take those risks. So they had to form their own insurance pool. So all of the nuclear power plants in the United States pay in every year, and this covers any costs that might be associated with significant events. So I would say that we've seen that throughout history in the operation of nuclear power plants. Today, it's exploding exponentially, and we look at the budgets for new build projects and where they start out and where they end up. And it's becoming, in the United States especially, we are seeing new builds abandoned a significant way into the construction of the project because it is not economically feasible. And so now certain states in the United States are talking about establishing some new regulations to make nuclear energy more competitive in a financial basis against other methods of generation, because in the open market, as we have in the United States, it is proven that unfortunately it is not the cheapest option. So that's a very, very challenging topic of debate for the nuclear industry to really face and understand.
Vladimir, maybe you will shed some light into this field with all the innovation that is heading towards the alternative reactors like thorium or the micro reactors. So do you see that we will see safer and at the same time cheaper nuclear energy in the future?
It's very difficult and long question what we now touched. First of all, I would like to stay a little bit at the safety, and I would like illustrated on the Olkiluoto project, with the European pressurized reactor built, which is still not finished. At the beginning, there was the real problem with the concrete. Concrete in 21st century. Everybody could say it's so simple, so easy to make good concrete, but the requirements on the quality of the concrete, even for the core catcher, the new safety improvement, because according to the civil accident management, we located the containment as the most important segment, and the highest quality is crucial. Therefore, the requirements on the concrete were so high that after 1 year of the build of the old kill water and some parameters of the built concrete was not enough, all this concrete should be extracted from the locality, and the build was started from the beginning. It means that the requirements for the safety are paid by enormous money. The requirements for the quality are really very, very high, because this new generation of nuclear power plant should save produced money. Finally, the nuclear power plant, it is the fabric for the money for the 60 or 80 years. Of course, it's very expensive facility. And of course, the calculation should be in the time of this 60 or 80 years of utilization. Second point of the economy is that you obtain the source which is independent from the climate, from the sunshine, from the wind, and it's a very good component into the mixture in function with the renewables. There is no question renewables or nuclear. It's only one question, how to use the synergy of the renewables and the nuclear. Both are low carbon sources, and in the total energy production in the world, these renewables and nuclears together make only 16%. And this ratio should increase. And it will be also in the question of the money and the price of the electricity, because if you look on the CO2 policy for the payment for the limitization of the production of the CO2, there will be another factors deformating the prices of the electricity from different sources. It's necessary to have the clear idea for the long-term future, also to have the consideration about the industry development, not in the next 10 years, but in the next 50 or 80 years, and to know where is the vision of the country, region, and according to this, you can only start to think about the prices. It's very complicated, excuse me.
I see. I understand. And I would like to invite also our spectators to ask any questions that they might have via our social media. So feel free to ask anything. We'll put it up here in at the very late, at the end of our discussion with the Q&As. And of course, at the end, we are having a little surprise for you prepared. Now I will get back to... Yes,
before
Lucas?
we jump from safety, I actually, as a spectator, have a question that I would like to pose to
all right, go ahead.
fellow panelists. We're talking about lessons learned, right? This is one of the big topics about Chernobyl and Fukushima is the lessons learned. So many people, when they think about Chernobyl, they think about an event that happened 35 years ago, and they forget about everything that's happened since then. In terms of lessons learned, and from the perspective of nuclear safety, when operating commercial reactors are decommissioned, they are broken down, taken away, and put into safe storage in a variety of places. And my question would be, would you feel that a systematic survey, an autopsy of sorts of different reactors at the end of their operating lifespans could help us gain knowledge that would improve nuclear safety at existing operating power plants?
Yes, exactly now we are doing this. Perhaps you know that in Slovakia we shut down nuclear power plant V1. Actually, the reactor pressure vessel was extracted from the reactor building, and it's really in decommissioning phases that we expect that 2027 will be decommissioning finished after approximately 15 years. It's very fast, decommissioning of the nuclear power plant. And because we have original material, reactor pressure vessel steels, which were 30 years in operation and damaged by the radiation, by the thermal treatment, by the chemistry, now, according to these specimens, we could consider about development of the reactor pressure vessels in other similar facility, not VVR 440, V230, but 13, which is the new generation of VVR reactors. And we could make some prediction about the lifetime, about the damages in the material, about the thermal treatment like annealing. So there are some experiences in the locality, in the country with the nuclear history can use it for the improvement of the safe operation and improvement of the decommissioning as well.
Yeah.
So yes.
We have a very similar approach in the Czech Republic, especially what concerns the material science and improvement of knowledge of materials that was just mentioned by Vladimir. But we used as much as possible as a source of irradiated materials of reactor pressure vessel or steam generators or other parts of primary circuit of VVR 440, the decommissioned power plant in East Germany, Greifswald, which is a big source of this kind of material. Fortunately enough, we don't have a decommissioned power plant or power plant in decommissioning in Czech Republic yet.
Thank you both for those answers. And, you know, I also harmonize with that sentiment. Unfortunately, in the United States, we have not applied this type of approach to the decommissioning process yet. And so I will be following up with you guys to gain some more information and insight, because I do think that there's an opportunity there for us to continue to increase safe operations at existing plants.
Thank you, Lucas. Very good question. And actually, this is something I wanted to touch as well, is that we see power plants being, or nuclear power plants being decommissioned slowly, step by step, very few now, but it looks like there will be coming more in the forthcoming years. However, we see also the trend in prolonging their the operational age, so going up by tens of years, by decades. Is this sustainable? Is still the I would say the design or the architecture from the 70s or 60s still operational and still safe enough for operate also nowadays?
If you allow me, Dominic, two aspects, and Lucas is better than me the situation in the US. Most of the US nuclear power plants has operation license for 60 years, but quite a few of them are being decommissioned after their 50 years in operation or approaching their 50 years of operation. That means the question of so-called long-term operation of nuclear power plants is really a tricky one, because we don't have enough experience with the life after 50. And it's also a question of a really very low cost of gas nuclear power plants in the United States, and it means that there is a really market fight concerning gas-fired power plants and nuclear power plants. So it's a question of economy, it's a question of safety, but there is, if you allow me one more minute, also the question of, say, slowing down the innovation, because if you operate existing power plants too long, you hinder the development or innovation or next generation of power plants. So it's the long-term operation is again a tricky question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
I fully agree what Dana said. I would like to add some moments. First, it's important to know design of the nuclear power plant, which lifetime should be prolongated. There are many robust and clever designs where you can change everything, mostly except the reactor pressure vessel. And if the reactor pressure vessel is in good condition for 60, 80 years, the rest you can almost change, and lifetime prolongation is not so difficult and can be managed in the, let's say, clever mode. But we have different design of nuclear power plants, and in some cases it could be problematic, and it's necessary to design what's possible and what's not possible anymore. Second point is, in the Europe, perhaps also in the United States, I don't know, but in the Europe, to create new nuclear localities is a real problem. So the new nuclear power plants could be mostly located in the existing locality with another units. And therefore, it's sometimes easier to invest to the refurbishment of the nuclear power plant than to the creation of the new locality or extend existing locality. And this is also important issue playing role in decision about investment in the refurbishment. Look on the CANDU reactors in Canada. Almost all of them are refurbished. Almost all of them will be prolongated after 40 years. Look also to the Japan. There is still about 20 nuclear power plants in increasing mode of the safety and re-evaluation of the safety measures and improving the standards of the safety and changing the, let's say, new requirements for design improvement of the authority. So I think that the lifetime prolongation is issue which is in the future, let's say, acceptable, and many countries will do it, because otherwise they will have not enough electricity. And if we consider that the ratio of the electricity production will increase from, let's say, 30%, which is now, to 50%, having in mind the electromobility or larger increase of the electronical facility, the necessity to use the nuclear power, also in vision of the hydrogen production or industrial heat, will be much higher and higher. And because the locality does not exist free in the Europe, the lifetime prolongation is one of the issues which will be in the future very actual.
Good. Thank you very much. I will now use the question from the audience, which will bring us a little bit back to Chernobyl, as we are talking about the future of Chernobyl. So now we'll be coming back with the question that is coming from Facebook, and it's: what about the final repository storage for spent fuel? Is there already clear strategy around the world? And this is also leading to another question where our spectator is asking if the new safe confinement or the unit number 4 at Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant could be used as a storage for nuclear spent fuel. So what are your thoughts on this? And we can start with Lucas, as you are the insider, basically.
You know, I will leave the first part of that question about spent fuel repository to the other panelists, and I will kind of focus my answer specifically on Chernobyl. And what do we do with all of the spent fuel and fuel-containing masses, which are in the basement of the Unit 4 reactor, is a very, very significant question. Most people think after we put the nuke safe confinement in place in 2016 that the job was done and we can walk away. Unfortunately, the way I look at the situation is this. The construction of the original object shelter sarcophagus in 1986 was an engineering miracle. The construction and design of the new safe confinement that ended in 2016 was an engineering wonder. Unfortunately, the creation and installation of a permanent nuclear waste repository somewhere in the 30-kilometer exclusion zone is going to be an engineering Everest, and in many ways even more difficult than the construction of the new safe confinement, and I'll tell you why. To the specific question is, why not put all of the nuclear waste inside of the Unit 4 sarcophagus, concrete everything over. Unfortunately, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is located at the confluence of two of the largest rivers in this part of Europe, the Pripyat River and the Dnieper, which means your groundwater table is very, very close to the surface of the ground. In most areas, a depth of 2 to 3 meters, if that. So you have a lot of movement that's happening. Now think about the fact that engineers came out at the construction of Chernobyl and they assessed the ability of the ground to withstand, support these structures. They drive in these pylons into the ground. This is for the original reactor. Now you have the accident, and now you're adding in extra concrete, extra steel to that calculation. Then you build the new safe confinement and move it into place. And one of the big questions, and something that they're still studying today, is the settling of the new safe confinement into the ground. They drove these big steel concrete pylons into the ground to support it. However, the structure is still going to settle and move. And unfortunately, I don't believe that it's a appropriate place for us to be storing, because it's in a very, how would you say, unpredictable mode of storage. We don't know what's happening inside of the building in terms of the engineering ability of the building to stand up. We know that someday portions of that building are going to collapse. That's why the new safe confinement was put into place. What you don't want is have a collapsing building next to a storage facility for nuclear waste. At some point, there will be a permanent waste depository installed somewhere in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. I do believe that. It makes no sense to condemn more land for this type of facility. The question is how much waste, what kind of waste, how will it be stored, and from where? Because there's also the question that's been posed that maybe many of the European countries might contribute to the construction of such a facility if they were able to send their spent fuel to this facility for permanent repository. From an engineering perspective, I think we are decades away from really making considerable progress towards this. It is something that in theory we are discussing. I know that some proposals have been put out for engineering concepts and design, but this is a very, very long process. I would be surprised if at the end of my working career, if we had come to a concrete resolution and moved forward with some significant steps. I think that this process and the questions that are posed by it will take many experts from around the world a very long time to come to some type of consensus, and for that consensus to be applied in the engineering approach.
Thank you very much, Lucas. And right now, let's back to the first part of this question regarding the overall, maybe the world strategy, if you see any, about the repository storages. Dana, what do you think about it?
Well, in fact, we don't have any other solution on the table than try to find a so-called deep geological repository to make the end of fuel cycle really safe. Before that, of course, we can reprocess a part of spent fuel and try to reuse it. But in the end, we will need to find deep geological repository in the stable geologic formation to get rid safely of spent fuel. But it's similar to Lucas has just mentioned. The idea is here. We don't know another solution, but the engineering solution that can be sold to public and accepted by public, it's far from being on the table.
I understand. Vladimir, what is your take on the repositories?
3 short remarks. The philosophy, the idea, actual wallet is to put it in the geological repository in the land of the origin of the waste. But not each country has sustainable deep repository, or we could say in the granite is better, but we have not granite. So the solution can be also changed. And the worldwide philosophy is now wait and see, but not because we are lazy or because we have no money. Now is this a strategy, the interim storage and prolongation up to 100 or 300 years let's and see if the spent fuel, which is 99% of the high-level waste, could be used in different useful way. So it's not the rubbish, it's the material perhaps possible to use after extracting some isotopes. This is thinking about the longer interim storaging. It's the philosophy. Not each country is ready to start to make the deep repository, although there are many of the plans. Second point is, I'm a member of the decommissioning financing group in the Luxembourg, where all these national programs are evaluated. And one of the statistics of this evaluation was, if we take together all high-level waste in the Europe, it's on the level 50,000 cubic meter of the high-level waste. It's something in the amount of one blockhouse with the 10 stairs. That's all for the whole time up to end of this century, and in all European countries. You can laugh that, yes, I have some mine which is suitable, I put it in one mine, but it's not so easy. First problem is legislation. Each country is responsible to take the final solution for the radioactive waste produced in the country. And second, the obligations are very tough and it's not so easy. And the best locality in the world is Australia, where is the big granite mountain and put it there for the whole world, and it's done. It's enough money for it? Yes. At least in the Europe, they are selected 150 billion euro to solving these problems. But imagine, each country should make some experimental facility. Each country should make some technical development, some organization of the infrastructure, etc. So it's necessary to reconsider the world or European policy about the waste storaging for the next century. And it's philosophical and political issue. Nevertheless, actually, at least Finland, Sweden, perhaps Russia as well, are ready to do this at least long-term storaging, but locality there is also deep repository ready for the high-level waste. So the technology exists, we can do it, but it costs a lot of money and we will lose some very interesting and important isotopes which can be used perhaps in another way of the industry.
Sure. That was the...
I'd like to
note.
Follow up to that if I could.
I'm over. Thank you. That's enough.
I was just commenting. I was just really astonished with the 150 billion, right, compared to the new safe confinement in Chernobyl that was around 3 billion, right? So we could build a lot of these, or I mean, we could make a lot of storages maybe somewhere in the exclusion zone. So, okay, there's the money.
But, you know, if you allow me, I would like to say it's lie, big lie, and after that statistics. If we look only on this by the table on some statistical values, it's not perhaps enough to make real realization of the problem and solve the problem. You have also the acceptance. And like Dana said, in the Czech Republic, there are different localities perhaps suitable for the deep geological repository of the nuclear waste. But there is missing the acceptance of the society. And that's the problem of the nuclear waste. To accept that we produce some waste, and although we can manage it in very safe mode, still we need to bring it into the locality, perhaps 500 meter deep, but still it will be exist. And that's the problem, to take the public acceptance point.
Now, Lucas, what's your take? And maybe you can also refer to what is your view on the future of Chernobyl zone itself and how it should be turned into a brownfield, if so. So please go ahead.
Well, I'd like to start with a question that I get asked a lot that I'm sure that Professor Slugin and Dr. Dubrova get, which is, why don't we just throw it into space? Many people watch those Superman movies with Christopher Reeves from the 1980s, where, you know, he collects all of the nuclear missiles from around the world, puts them in a big net and throws them into the sun. And this is a question we get from a lot of people. Then you start to take a closer look at that type of feasibility and option. And if we ignore the moral question of whether we should take our garbage and throw it into the solar system, we talk about the actual, how would that work in terms of sending rockets up into space. Many people are watching the rocket launches that happened in the United States, primarily in the 70s and 80s, and also today with the new SpaceX rockets, and you start to understand that sometimes rockets that go up don't make it all the way that they want to go. And if you were to have a shipment of nuclear waste on its way to the sun that unfortunately had some type of problem in our atmosphere, it would create a very significant international problem and a long-term problem with consequences that would last generations. We look at what happened in the United States, for example, the nuclear testing that happened in the Southwest United States. You can trace those radioisotopes all the way across the US from the West Coast to the East Coast. And that's something that happened over decades, of course, but it gives you an idea of how far the spread and proliferation of these materials can be once they are put into the environment. And that's what makes that type of disposal off the table, if you will. So we are stuck with terrestrial storage somehow. As Professor Slugan said, maybe we reuse some of the fuel, but even if you reuse, this is kind of a hot term that's being used by the industry right now. Well, it's not spent fuel. It's just, lightly used fuel that can be used again. It doesn't eliminate, it doesn't close the nuclear fuel cycle. It prolongs it, yes, and it reduces the mass that we'll have to store. It does make that mass a little bit more problematic in terms of storage and the length of storage that it will require. So this is a reality. You can't pick and choose the parts that you want. You bake the cake, you're going to have all of the ingredients in it. And so you have to take the good with the bad. And this is really the decisions that are being made related to this. Back to your question about what's the future of Chernobyl. Unfortunately, very bleak. Because of the fact that I don't think enough attention is being put on preservation of what was lost. For tourism, for example, to go and look at a forest, okay, I can look at forests anywhere. Why people come to the zone is to understand the impact of this disaster. That's some of the most powerful lessons that people are learning. I walk through the zone and I see buildings that are collapsing. I see entire villages that are completely taken over by nature. This is one of the good sides of the disaster. It's shown us that nature will overcome. No matter how bad humans make a mistake and have an impact, nature finds a way to overcome. But we're also losing the memories, the hopes and dreams of the people who used to live there, who are no longer permitted to return. And the farther removed we are from the incident, the easier it is to ignore the lessons learned. And this physical zone gives us an opportunity to remember and understand the full impact of a disaster like this on the surrounding community. And so from that perspective, since I don't see much work being done on preservation, I'm concerned that in the next 10 years, there won't be much worth visiting in the zone unless some significant action is taken to preserve it. On the other side, from the industrial side, in terms of decommissioning the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, this is an ongoing process. And we realistically have no idea how much money or how long it's going to take. We have proposals on what our proposed plan might be, yet none of those proposals have met their timelines or the budgetary guidelines that were initially established for them. So we know the steps that we need to make. For me, Chernobyl really demonstrates the difference between what we need to do and what we can do, because we can't do everything we need to do right now. Who knows how long it's going to take for us to build this permanent waste repository? Ukraine has a law that no fuel material can be removed from the Unit 4 reactor without a place to put it. It's a very good law. We don't need to remove stuff and put it in interim storage when we can keep it all together and monitor it in one place right now. But we don't know when that facility will be designed, when it will be constructed, when it will be ready for operation. We don't know the amount of money that's going to go into that. And we don't know what's going to happen to the original reactor 4 reactor building, the object shelter, or the new safe confinement in the meantime. The new safe confinement has a lifespan of 100 years.
Right.
I'm not a gambling man, but if I was to make a bet, I would imagine that we're probably going to need another type of covering before we actually remove everything and can break that whole site down. That's my guess. And so, like I said, I think a lot of people tend to look back at this event that happened 35 years ago, and that's good. but they don't understand everything that's happened over the last 35 years and how really early into this process we are with Chernobyl. We are still at the beginning. And it's very hard for people to understand that. But if you talk about the scale of years that this site is going to need management, we're still very early in that process.
I see. Thank you very much. And it looks like we are coming to a conclusion after going around with the all safety and everything that is going on currently in the world. And so I will leave the last short remarks for Dana and for Vladimir. Where do you see the future of Chernobyl? Dana.
Well, it's easy question, but it's not easy to answer it. I just mentioned, I just would like to mention what I have read just this morning concerning the intention of Ukrainian government to make for some time the Chernobyl site and Chernobyl zone touristic, target, and also to try to put it on the UNESCO list of, natural or monuments, and this is something that can help to bridge the future of Chernobyl site. In the longer term, maybe the brownfield, which for sure the Chernobyl site will develop to be, can be used, for instance, for the combination of some renewables to produce electricity, and I think that it could help to support the steps Lucas just mentioned that are far from being how to say it properly, far from being realistically achievable to really cope with Chernobyl accident.
Sure. Thank you very much. I see, and we saw especially Chinese investors coming, and already there are two testing solar or photovoltaic power plants nearby Chernobyl. One is in the CNHPP area itself, so in the very close by, and one is a bit further. But we see that there are some attempts already going this direction because of the infrastructure that is inside. Vladimir, what about you? How do you see the future of Chernobyl? Short remark from your side.
I'm not so optimistic than Dana. Dana told us perspectives very polite. I do not think about the perspectiveness of the Chernobyl locality for the next 50 or 100 years. Coming back, before 1970, there was almost nothing. Very small villages and perhaps no population concentration, but it's about 100 kilometers north from the Kiev, and in the future, all this agglomeration can increase. Nevertheless, the stigma of the radiation in this locality will not increase industrial use of the Chernobyl. I know about the photovoltaic attempts, but I do not believe that it's really good, because the sunshine there is not so high than in the Sahara, and perhaps only 11 up to 13% can be used. Therefore, I do not think that there is some important industry, some let's say accumulation for this electricity from the photovoltaic, and let's say long-term vision for using this locality. Look on the Detroit. It's something similar. Many people from the Europe are traveling to the Detroit to see how this city is going down in the area of the car production. Perhaps tourism can be for some years one interesting but not very financial positive branch. Otherwise, I see very, very limited future of the Chernobyl.
Thank you very much. And before we go, as I promised to our spectators, we are having a little surprise. So now I would like to ask Martin if you can show us what is actually now available, how the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant is opening its doors to the visitors, to the tourists. And actually, just lately, we are allowed to enter the famous control room of the reactor number 4. And this is how it looks like.
So we are in the golden corridor because personnel called it like the golden corridor. The yellow walls are covered by that shielding. Nickname is from that previous years. So this is control room of Unit 4, that unit which was damaged after the accident in 1986, April 26. We can see a lot of holes where we know that the equipment should be there. But, you know, after the accident, practically all detectors and the equipment which was here in the boards and in the panels there was dismantled for the investigation. So for today, the level of radiation is from 25 up to 50 microsieverts per hour.
All right, thank you very much for showing us the video. And I have to confess, I had goosebumps when I was going around. And actually, I was not there yet, but we have one person who was there, that's Lucas. So I would like to ask Martin if you can show us some pictures from the inside of the control room number 4. And Lucas, if you can give us a glimpse, how does it feel like enter to these very premises where the historical moments happened back 35 years ago? And what do we see at the pictures?
Very well. To kind of set the stage while Martin gets the photos going, the Unit 4 control room is still a emotional place. You can still feel the weight of what happened. And oftentimes, I think words can't even put it into the right illustration. It's a place where I sit and reflect. Here we're looking at, from the far left side of the control room, the operating panels. This panel that's closest to us with the circular hole in the middle is where the reactor operators, Akimov and Toptunov, would have been standing. This is where the AZ5 button, the scram button was that they pressed just minutes before the explosions. The console in the center there is for the main circulating pumps, driving the water through the reactor and the turbines. On the far side in the back there, the console that you see is for the diesel generators and turbine operators there. We've kind of switched to the other side now. So this console is closest to us would have been for those operators. In the back, to the left side of this image would have been the shift supervisor's desk where Dyatlov was standing and sitting at the night of the accident. From this photo, in the back corner on the left side, you see these two big circles. These are the core cartograms, and one was for temperature and one was for pressure. And you notice that they're right in front of this panel that we've now seen. In this panel, we see there's a core cartogram indicator on the console, and then there's one up on the wall. And the core cartogram on the console here is for the control rods, the safety rods. They can actuate them individually or in groups. And in fact, Stanislav's hand is hovering right over the AZ5, the scram button, which would drop all of the control rods into the reactor. So those reactor operators would be monitoring the temperature and the pressure of what's happening in the core, because of course they have no direct methods of observation. And based on the readouts that they're getting, they can understand physically what's happening inside of the reactor. And then they're controlling it by controlling the control rods, pushing them in and out, controlling the flow rate of water. In this photo, Stanislav is standing in front of the main circulating pumps and turbine operations console. And so these workers would be working hand in hand with the reactor operators who are kind of controlling the neutron flux. The power of the reactor is also very tightly controlled, related to the water that's coming in and out of the reactor. Today, as you saw in the video, you see a lot of holes, missing equipment. This reactor control room was scavenged after the accident, and a lot of that equipment was taken and used and replaced in some of the other reactor control rooms at the site. But you walk in there and it has a different feeling. I've been inside of the Unit 1, 2, 3, and 4 control rooms. Unit 4 still is different. It's frozen in time and will continue to be so. And so when you walk in there, there is a gravity in the air. It is a moment for silence and reflection. And I've been fortunate to visit that site very many times, and every time it has the same gravity to the situation.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Hope the day will come soon and we will together log into the control room number 4. We'll be looking forward to that. And also we will, dear our spectators, will not leave you hungry. So if you would like to take a peek, it'll be over a 1-hour online tour that we are organizing, and we're starting to launch it in the early May. It will be May 8th. Feel free to use the code from just this event. It's the promo code is ROOM4, so it's ROOM and the digit 4, so Room 4 together at our website CHERNOBYL.com, when you will be checking out from the online tour, and you will get a 10 euro discount. So it will be only 19 euros for participation. And at the same time, for those of you who are eager to go there with me and Lucas one day, you can enjoy a 10% discount with this very same code, just a different tour. Okay, so that's the real Chernobyl control room number 4 tour, and with the same discount code, which is Room 4. Okay, so feel free to use it right after the session, and it will be valid from today until the end of June. All right, enough with the marketing messages. I know that we have a ton of questions that are unanswered. I'm so sorry. We cannot hold our guests any longer, but we'll be coming back to you on our social media just to answer all your questions. So please feel free to check it out with the answers. And now is the time to wrap up and to say a big thank you to our guests. It was a wonderful discussion. I made a ton of notes just for myself, and hopefully they will help me in the next discussions that we will organize, hopefully in the next year or maybe even sooner. But now let me say a big thank you to Dr. Dana Drabova, the State Office Chairman of the Nuclear Safety from Czech Republic. Thank you very much, Dana.
Thank you for inviting me. It was really a quite interesting discussion for me, and I also took some notes.
Oh, wonderful. We are life learners. Thank you very much, Dana. It was a pleasure. Then let me say a big thank you to Professor Vladimir Sluga, the Chairman of Slovak Nuclear Society. Vladimir, thank you so much.
Thank you also, and be healthy.
Yeah, stay healthy as well. Hope to see you in person very soon. Then Lucas Hickson, the president of Clean Futures Fund. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much for the questions, and then at the end, like describing us what we have seen. So it was a pleasure to have you. And again, hope to see you in person back in Ukraine.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Professor Slugan and Dr. Dobrova for your incredible knowledge and experience that you shared with us today.
All right, thanks also to the team that is running this event behind. So thanks to Lula, thanks to Martin, thanks to Helga. And last but not least, thanks to you, dear spectators, thanks to the ones who are interested in Chernobyl, in the nuclear safety, in the nuclear energy, and hope we can meet or we can chat or we can have some real connection on these topics in the future as well. Stay healthy and have fun. See you. Bye-bye. My name was Dominic, and it was wonderful to have you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
One note.
А там люди есть? Да, поднимай наш состав. Поднимай, начальник поднял. Так, всех.